Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 26th edition of Crossing the Divide, a show that promotes and encourages common sense as we analyze current events and issues facing the town of Winchester. My name is Glenn Albanesius, and as always, I am joined by my good friend, Mr. Ken Fracasso. Tonight, we're going to continue our discussion related to the budget here in town. We're going to talk a little bit about some incremental progress, which I have come to believe that we're starting to make a little bit of headway as far as the facts starting to come out. We saw a little bit of turn in position with the town manager. Ken will explain that in a moment. But I just want to climb up in my soapbox for a second here. And each week we try to, or at least I do, open the show and to make reference to common sense. And we do that for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. I think that it's important that the viewers out in TV land understand that we sit here and do this show, and we sit at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and we put our time in behind the scenes, really trying to promote the concept of common sense. The issues and problems that are facing the town here, they're not unique. We've had some things happen that perhaps other communities haven't had, but the fact that we've been relatively slow to react to them, I think, is the problem and really the cause of the issues that we have right now. So we encourage you, as you watch our show and listen to us, to put your common sense hat on. And when we come up with ideas and suggestions, which we have, and most recently have been kind of asked where are those ideas in detail, we're going to continue to say the same things, and we hope that ultimately people will start to understand that we need to make some decisions. We need to make some difficult decisions sooner than later, because in order to get us out of the mess that we're in right now, the path out is pretty clear. It may not be the path that a lot of people want to take, but it is the path that's going to get us back on track. So with that being said, Ken, I'm going to climb back down and turn the show over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot. At Monday night's Board of Selectmen meeting, Town Manager Dale Martin stated that we did not have a deficit. However, less than 24 hours later at a budget workshop meeting, he in fact stated that we did have a deficit to the tune of $1.8 million, which a few days later, I believe it was Friday's paper, if I'm not mistaken, that number had climbed to $2.2 million. So, in essence, folks, we do have a deficit. Glenn and I and a few other people in town believe that it's probably closer to $3 million. But that being said, we keep coming back to the same old story. We need to get the facts, we need to get them straight, and we need to get them now. We can't address a problem unless we know what the problem is. And we know we have a deficit. And unfortunately, the budget proposal that's before us right now does absolutely nothing to address this $2 or $3 million hole. And unless we do exactly that, address that first and foremost, we're just heading for more disaster.
Right.
It's only going to, magnify itself instead of correcting itself.
And Ken, before you go on, let's address the impact of carrying that large a deficit. I brought up at the meeting, Selectmen's meeting, there will come a time when you're carrying that large a debt where there are going to be people that we owe money to that are going to say enough is enough. It may not have happened yet, but I know that we came precariously close in the last quarter to vendors shutting us off, and that is a bad situation. That's something that the state, I'm sure that we've got a red flag, over the town, but we need to minimize that as quickly as possible. So carrying that amount of debt in his plan was going to be over a couple-year period. I think that's risky.
Oh, risky! It's unfathomable. It's unattainable. And it's completely the wrong way to do it. I believe, as we both do, as we have stated previous, if he's proposed almost a $33 million budget, that's the proposal right now. It's on the table. We need to back out $3 million in deficit, so that makes it a $30 million budget. And then we should back out $1 million to put into the fund balance, which would make it a $29 million budget. This is the only way that we're going to get ourselves clear of this problem. And we need to find out how we can run the town on that amount of money. And that's what the town manager does, folks. I mean, that's part of his job. They've asked for ideas, and we've given some, but we are a policy-making board, and the legwork and the fact-finding mission should rest on his shoulders.
Right.
I mean, let's just briefly look at the budget in an overview. We're not going to pick it apart, but the way that this has been addressed is the same exact way that it's been done for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And unless we change the way that we do business in this town by reducing, restructuring, and reinvesting, we're going nowhere.
Right.
We're bound for disaster. It's only going to continue to get worse. And all we're doing is the same thing that we do. It's status quo. It's the same thing that the school board does. They look at last year's budget, throw in a little increase here or there, and put it to the voters. We cannot sustain this, folks. It's totally unsustainable. We need to change the way we do business. Right. And the only way that we're going to do that is by reductions. And we have to start. Is it going to be painful? Absolutely. But we have got to get our financial feet back on the ground. We cannot borrow money. We can't do anything.
Right. And the argument that was presented the other night was that because of the reval, there are going to be certain people in town that perhaps may pay less taxes, maybe an equal amount. But the one thing that was kind of carefully avoided is that there is going to be a segment of the taxpayers that are going to have a significant increase, and not just a couple dollars. It's going to be quite a bit, coupled with the fact that water and sewer, their situation is going to impact 2,500 users.
Right.
And again, not nickels and dimes. It was 20% on the water side and
35
on the sewer
Right.
side, which has already had an impact. I heard the other night we had, I think it was the public hearing with water and sewer, and one of our largest vendors
Right.
up and left because I would imagine they could get a better deal in New Hartford.
So we're already, here again, we're already in a hole. That's money that was counted on, revenue, okay, important part of the budget, that we're not going to have this year.
Right.
So we're going to be right back in the same boat. We already are. We haven't proceeded, one iota into this new budget season yet, and already we've lost the largest single vendor revenue resource for the sewer, an outside septic system company that brings their sewage for processing here. So that's probably between $150,000 and $200,000 a year that we're going to lose. So there's a shortfall. So already the increases that they did propose and then they voted on it, so it's going forth. We're still going to be short. So where in the budget is that going to be
Offset.
Right. So we don't overspend, or we're short on revenues come year end.
Right.
Yeah, another thing that he mentioned, this is all perpetuated on the fact that I believe there's 3 more unions that still have to be negotiated, and Dale's plan is to give them a 1% increase. Well, that's fine, but what if they don't? What if this goes to binding arbitration and they end up with 2.5 or 3? Where's that deficit going to be made up?
Right.
And he also is planning on adding a mill to the fund balance, which in effect isn't going to the fund balance. It's going to go to pay the $3 million or $4 million plus in bills that we have. But I mean, these are all, it's pie in the sky. Mm-hmm. It's nothing that's etched in stone. So, we're setting ourselves up for the same thing, more failure. And there's no backup plan.
No.
And if those bonds, getting back to the water and sewer for a minute, if they're going to have less revenue than expected, those bonds still need to be paid, ladies and gentlemen, and they will be the same way that it's been done for the last 10 years. It'll come from the town side. Something else won't get paid, but those will. Because if we default on those, then we are all done. Right. So, I mean, it's business as usual.
Right. And that is, again, the finger pointing started a little bit at the last meeting, where are your ideas? And I think anybody that's watched this show faithfully or listened to Ken and I, at the selectmen meetings, we kind of say the same things over and over. And again, to Ken's point earlier, we're a policy board. I don't have the expertise. I certainly would invest the time if it was called on me to, do the detail work, but that's the town manager's job, is to start to put some details to some of these ideas that we had. And status quo, we listened to one of the Board of Ed members stand up a couple meetings ago and just say, well, you can't do what the town voted they wanted to do. You just can't do it. And that's got to change, ladies and gentlemen. The sooner that changes, the more progress we're going to make. How that happens, obviously there's going to be elections coming up that could or could not change the landscape politically here in town. But on the idea front, we need to start to put some some of the ideas that we've come forth with. Dale has to start and come to the table with some specifics. You can't just say it can't be done, and that's kind of been the reaction to a majority of the ideas that we've had.
Right.
Public Works just couldn't be done.
Well, I mean, in the meeting that I sat in, they said that they contacted CCM, it's a state agency here, and they said that they knew of no town in the state of Connecticut that had privatized their public works. So, what does that mean?
Right.
We can't be the first one, or we can't do something. I mean, just because no one else has done it, it can't be done.
Right.
I mean, listen, I don't care what we privatize or wherever there's cost savings. Make no mistake, employees and benefits are the largest expense that we have.
Right.
We have pension funds, we have insurance, which are sky high. I mean, we pay. I made a note just on a couple of the in the budget here this year, so just bear with me for a moment. And I'm not picking on any one commission or board or whatever, but in the tax collector's office, we have salaries of $103,000 and benefits of $58,000.
Really?
I mean, it's 60%. I mean, these are costs that we cannot bear anymore. I mean, there needs to be changes, and I mean, this is part of the restructuring and the reductions that we need to do. Town clerk's office, salaries of $101,000, benefits of $52,000. And it just goes on and on. The police, we have, I believe it's $1.6 million in payroll, and almost $1 million in benefits.
Right.
I mean, it's just
Right.
this is what we've been talking about for 2 years now. The restructuring that needs to take place, because, and I know that there are some people that are well-intentioned, but maybe they're just not that well-informed, that are willing to pay a little bit more in taxes. But I mean, what's a little more? 2-3%. I mean, that wouldn't even cover the increases, annual increases in the benefits and the pension funds.
And in the context of the discussion, everyone needs to keep in mind is that it's not just trying to fix the immediate problem. Obviously, that's the goal right now.
Right.
But sustainability that's the magic word, folks. Is what can we do to make changes so that next year, the year after that, 5 years, 10 years from now, we're on a financial path so that we're not experiencing what we're going through right now. Mm-hmm. And again, the formula for doing that, we may not have every detail, but we certainly have had suggestions that warrant some specifics. And I guess we'll continue to say the same things until more and more people begin to understand why we're calling what we're calling for, and hopefully that gains some traction.
Well, I mean, all we can do is throw it out there. I mean, if it's the choice of the people not to do this or to do something different, then so be it. But we're putting the options out there for you, and we firmly believe that unless we attack this in the mode that we've put forth, that it's just a recipe for further disaster, and the state will be here. And unfortunately, I guess it was Tuesday night during the budget talks. Candy Perez's, now her option was, well, if we don't do this, what we've proposed here right now, which is basically the same thing, spend the same as we always have, then we'll just let the state come in. Mm-hmm. And I don't really think that that's an option. We've stated, from the beginning of this, disastrous news that's befallen us, that that would be the last thing that we wanted. But I mean, she does not even want to look at what some of these reductions and restructuring and reinvesting things look like. It's unfortunate. It's hard to say. I mean, last year we had several budgets that failed, and when it got to a zero, which really wasn't a zero, Glenn and I tried to state that, we felt that it would pass, and unfortunately it did. But it wasn't a correct zero. It wasn't a true zero. And, we're seeing some of the ramifications from that right now. But it will be worse this year. I mean, if this budget should go through, and I hope and pray that it doesn't, that, it's going to be disastrous.
Yeah, and you know, the other point I wanted to make too is that, you know, everybody needs to come to the table. I mean, we've concentrated on the town side because that's really where we feel we can have, you know, the only impact. We can make suggestions, and we have over the years, you know, to the Board of Ed. But the number is pretty big, ladies and gentlemen, and in order to get that down quickly, everybody has to come to the table with ideas on how to restructure and cut. Obviously, you know, you don't cut beyond the ability to still perform, but take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. That, I think, is critical. And I've said this a few times, but, you know, in a family situation or in a business situation, if you want to make a change, you will make a change. You'll make it happen. And I think that when you cut to the chase, that's where we're at. Is I think that you know, you can't just pay lip service to the concept of what we're talking about here. You have to be willing to do what it takes to make, you know, the changes and you know, basically reap the benefits. But you can find a million reasons why not to do something. It only takes the one.
Right.
You know, the one reason to go ahead and do it.
And you know, we've also stated that it's been a tough road because we haven't gotten information either correct, incorrect, or none at all. And you know, as I opened the show with, you know, our town manager said we had no deficit, and then, you know, said we did, and then it grew a few days later by, you know, almost another $500,000. But you know, I think they're reduced now to playing word games. You know, there's accounting word games. You know, it's like, you know, well, it was booked in one year, but it's paid in another. The fact remains, you know, the money's not there.
Right.
It's been spent, and we do have a deficit. He liked to call it a shortfall, which, you know, is basically the same thing. But, you know, we've said this right along. We need this information. You know, we need correct information in order to, you know, deal with the problem.
Right.
And, you know, dancing around this thing or pretending that's not there isn't the way to, you know, you can't ignore it. It's not gonna go away on its own.
And can I hold out some hope with the new finance director, Robin, that we'll start to get, you know, accurate information, and I'm sure that it's going to take her some time to get up to speed, but I do think that has, and I think that change will pay some dividends for us as far as, you know, getting the information that we've called for.
Right. But I think it's critical that, you know, we have to address the deficit. We have to address it in this budget.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we cannot, you know, postpone it for 2 or 3 years and pay it over time, because we just it's not going to happen. But you know, the honesty, you know, we need to be, you know, real to ourselves and to the taxpayers. You know, we can't put bogus items in the budget that aren't there or aren't going to work. So and you touched on it too, the schools. I mean, I think it's, you know, crucially, you know, critically important that they come to the table and have some reductions there. It can't be just on the town side, and that's always been a tough road to hoe too.
It is. I mean, they're protected by the MBR, and you know, we've brought it to the you know, the table before that there are other towns that have you know, budgeted for the MBR, but the Board of Ed took a proactive stance and not spent that money, and actually turned money back over to the town at the end of the year. And we've made that point over and over that realistically they are a huge part of the equation. They get 2/3 of the budget, and I'm sure that they can come up with every reason that they need to spend exactly what they get, and probably more. I'm sure that on the town side we could think of reasons why we need more money, but the reality of the situation is I think that taxpayers can't afford it right now.
No, they can't. We've got to get back and spend within our limits.
Right.
You know, and like I said, you know, get our fiscal house in order, get our feet on the ground so we can do something. I don't want to dwell on this too long, but you know, I think that we need to mention a little something about the reduced, we'll call it, public comment, and you know, some of the stuff that raised. I mean, and I think that was extremely unfortunate. I said during the public comment portion, I mean, there were several people that got up and spoke. There were some changes made, you know, by the mayor to realign how that's part of the meeting is run. But you know, I think a lot of this was self-induced. I think the lack of information, the lack of correct information, the lack of timely information has stirred, you know, a lot of interest and, you know, anger, actually, you know, with some of the taxpayers that attend those meetings. And I think it was awful the way that it was handled. I mean, it was well orchestrated. Obviously, Mayor Welcome had plans on, you know, making a point because there was police officers
Yes.
out in the hall before the meeting even started.
Right.
And I think she wanted to make a point, and I guess maybe she did. I don't think it was a good point. I think it's unfortunate for the entire town. It just, I don't know, it didn't bode well with me. And after the meeting, there were some, you know, some of her cronies that came to the table and, you know, congratulated her on a good job, and I thought it was extremely distasteful and, you know, disgusting. But that being said, you know, unless you want to add something to it.
Yeah, no, I just want everyone to know, you know, I think Ken and I agree, and I tried to state it the night that it first came up, is I think that the public comment is as important to that, you know, meeting procedure as anything else. Obviously, it is our, you know, it's our business meeting, but I think it is an opportunity for citizens to come down, speak on an issue that they feel passionate about. I would never, ever, in a million years, go anywhere near trying to, you know, throttle that in any way, form, or fashion. I think that that's, you know, that's a bedrock of democracy, and the ability to speak publicly on whatever topic. And you know, granted, it's not easy sometimes. I admit it. Some of the remarks are pretty pointed and heated. But I think as elected officials, it's part of the job. So we want to, you know, let everyone know out there that. Certainly that's not a change that we had anything to do with. There was mention that it was, I think in the paper it said that it was an agreed upon situation, and I want to make sure that everyone out there knows that that was not the case wholeheartedly. Ken, I do want to bring up a quick point that I think bears some discussion. I had an opportunity the other night to attend the Gilbert rollout of their international student program. And I think it ties well with the discussion we're having here in really one respect, and that is, you know, we've talked, you know, at length about restructuring and making some good business decisions. And what I heard in a very short, pretty concise, you know, discussion was the Gilbert School taking the initiative to experiment with a program where foreign students would come in and attend the high school for a fee. And I think that, you know, it's early in the game. From what I understand, that there's 8 kids that have put deposits in, some verbal agreements beyond that. They listed, you know, it's a pretty intense process to basically apply and get approved, but Dr. Serio made a pretty good point early on in his discussion that this was a business decision. They understand conceptually that, you know, the town's finances are where they are. They need to work on ideas to make themselves sustainable over the years, and I applaud them for taking these, you know, very basic steps in that direction.
It's part of a restructure.
It is.
Which is what we've been talking about.
Exactly.
Which is what we need.
Right.
Right.
And it's a good thing, I think, anyway, to recognize an effort in the right direction. And again, this could go in a number of different directions. It may fail. We certainly hope it doesn't. And I'm sure there's going to be stumbling blocks and hurdles along the way. But this is what we need more of, is, you know, looking to, you know, grow your business.
Right.
And again, beyond the discussion that we continue to have here of, you know, restructuring and reducing our expense side, we do need to continue to have that discussion and effort on the growth side. And I certainly hope that, you know, a lesson is learned here.
Right. Well, we got a couple of budget meetings. Do you have the dates? I meant to bring them with me and I didn't. I know
Tuesday night we're at the band room in Pearson School, I think. And
with Board of Ed.
With the Board of Ed, correct.
Right. And then
that's the next
is it the 4th, April 4th?
I think so, Ken.
I don't know if that was set in stone yet or not, but
right.
I'm sure it'll be in the paper, and we'll keep up, get those times and locations out to you. But, I mean, it's for those that are watching, and I mean, if you have any questions or comments, please call Glenn or I, or attend some of these meetings. I mean, it is discouraging, but this is fixable. I mean, we need to fix this. We need to fix it within our own, realm of abilities.
Yep.
Because we do not want the state to come in here. But, we would appreciate any feedback or your comments and.
And I think, Ken, just to jump in quickly, we had our RTC meeting the other night. I was unable to attend because I went up to Gilbert, but from what I understand, we had record attendance, and I think some new people coming and speaking about, their understanding or wanting to gather more information about what's going on. So
right. It was. I think it was around 20 people, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a few more, but it was pretty lively. We were there for a little over 2 hours, and
Good.
It was a nice conversation. There were some new faces there. And there's a lot of concern.
Yeah.
And then
So
I was glad for that.
yeah, and that goes back to my opening comment about incremental progress. The fact that more and more people are starting to at least ask questions. I think that's huge. And I want to close tonight. I made a list of some pretty specific things I want to run through very quickly. I know our time's growing short here, but at least these are ideas that we would hope that somehow, some way, people would start to take a look at. We want to obviously continue to look at the value of closing a school here in town and reap the savings there. The town voted overwhelmingly to consolidate the finance departments here in town. Again, we look at that as an opportunity to continue to function well, but with limited staff. Privatization, we've talked about it at Public Works. I know in Torrington, the tax collector, Ken, is a private company that comes in and works there. Even the building department. I know the town manager has discussed that. Let's get some details on the value to that. Elimination of civil service, I'm convinced that we can do our hiring without that additional step and cost to the town. Restructuring of benefits, already we've been able to do that a little bit with the supervisor's contract. John Gauger has been promoting constantly the opportunity that we can sell our tax liens. Dave LaPointe came last meeting and said that there were, I think it was the town of Pittsfield, ended up being able to sell their water to a bottling company. Growth of our grand list, that is really the ultimate thing we need to focus on. So here are some specific ideas. Again, we continue to bring these to the table. We certainly appreciate your time tonight, and ask that you continue to communicate with Ken and I, watch the show, get involved, be part of the solution. Thank you very much.
And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, this deficit that we're in is a reality. It's not, manufactured. It's not, make-believe. This is a critical problem that needs to be addressed and needs to be addressed right now. Thanks once again for joining us.
Thank you very much.